Welcome to the show, Keith.
Hey, how we doing today?
Awesome, man. Awesome. Keep them busy. Um, my favorite question to start off with is what's your sober date?
My sober date is January 3rd, 2024, and there is a reason for that. I've been involved in recovery a long time. My
What was going
first
on January 2nd of 2024?
my fiance and I, who were not married, now we were planning on getting married in March of this year, and some things that just I was not being honest in my recovery. I was working a program, but I wasn't working a program. Wasn't working an honest program, um, and I was not being honest with myself and my feelings and sharing those with the other person in my life. And I allowed it to build up and build up and build up, and then just a set of circumstances happened, and I wound up drinking again, and I was smoking crack. Um, this was a Friday night. Some circumstances had changed, and I took her to her mother's house and dropped her off. And I got drunk and I got high. Um, and then Saturday morning at 1:30 a.m. I called my sponsor, and I was like, I'm not throwing my life away. What the thing that changed, and I realized that it changed, and set my ass on fire, my program on fire since then. Um, is that I realized that it wasn't working for me anymore. The drinking and the smoking dope didn't do anything for me anymore. It didn't get me what I wanted. I was looking for relief in all the wrong places, and I knew I've been, like I said, I've been involved in 12-step fellowship since 1997. So if that tells you anything, um, but I knew exactly what to do, and I was like, I'm not throwing my life away again, because I'd been up until that point, I'd been clean and sober for almost 5 years, and I threw that away in one night. Um, and 2 nights later, I was at a meeting at 8 a.m. in the morning, getting my white chip and starting over. Um,
Yeah, I know that feeling of starting over, but knowing what you need to do.
yeah,
Um, I had 6 years clean from opiates this past April. And
congratulations.
but thank you. I'm still opiate free, but my sober date is now April 1st. And it's because last summer after my dad passed, I started smoking weed all day, every day. I started using benzos. I was prescribed Ativan first, and I abused that. Then I manipulated my psychiatrist to give me Valium, abused that. So it wasn't until the end of March where my wife was like, "You're missing a lot of pills in here," and so I had to come clean and be honest and start over again. So, I knew exactly what to do, and it was to get back into 12 steps and start working a program again, because I have been around the room since 2018. And I knew exactly where to go and what I needed to do, and I kind of jumped back into it. Where are you from, Keith?
I'm from South Haven, Mississippi, which is a suburb of Memphis, Tennessee, pretty much. I grew up most of my life on State Line Road, so I could be in my front yard in Mississippi and throw a rock, and it would land in Memphis, Tennessee. So, so we're pretty much a suburb of Memphis. So that's where I've been my whole life. I've been off to various places, going to treatment and staying a little while somewhere, doing a little visit somewhere else. But this has always been my home, and up until now, up until about the last time that I got sober in 2019, I had always said, I always relapsed when I came back home. I would do great when you sent me off somewhere. I would stay good. I would actually work for treatment centers. I work in treatment now. It's part of what I do. It's my passion to help other alcoholics and addicts. But I would always work at the treatment center, and I'd stay good. And then I would come home and jump right back in. And no matter what I had done, what programs I had worked, I couldn't stay sober here. And I knew that I would want until I could stay sober in my own hometown, I wouldn't have any sobriety that was worthwhile.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I bounced around. I went to treatment in LA, and I stayed out there for 5 months roughly. And I had an amazing recovery out there. I was going to 2, 3 meetings a day. I was working the steps daily. I had a connection with my higher power. I was going to all the meetings. I had a sponsor. Then I moved back to where I was using, and I started going to meetings there. But the meetings were different, right? Because, I went from Los Angeles where I could talk about drugs in AA, and then I came back to conservative Pennsylvania And, they really didn't want to hear you talk about drugs in AA. So I felt really shut off. You know what I mean? Like I couldn't really express what I was going through because I was driving an hour and a half, 2 hours each way, 4 times a week to get pills. So it's hard for me to be like, oh, I was driving 2 hours to get alcohol. You know what I mean? Like it was hard for me to tell my story, with being so like, let's keep our discussion confided into alcohol and how it pertains to alcohol only. And, doing that, I just felt really like I had to shut my mouth a lot and not share. That's why I'm doing NA this time, is because I can feel like, because in NA, alcohol is a drug, period. It's in their literature. And, the founder of NA, Jimmy K, he was an alcoholic and an addict. And that's why he started, NAs, because he wanted to give a fellowship for people who struggle with more than just alcohol. So I'm grateful for that. That was in 1953. I think NA just turned 70 last year.
Yes.
And been around for a while. So I feel at home there. I do a meeting Monday through Friday there. I do Gamblers Anonymous on the weekends because, right when I stopped doing the benzos and the weed, I found myself gambling 7 days a week on baseball.
What's funny, you should say that.
Why?
I actually work for the gambling clinic at the University of Memphis. So my job is to treat gambling addicts. And I thought, just we'll digress just for a second here. I thought, when I started doing the work, the guy called me. It was like, we need peer support, lived experience in these gambling clinics. Can you do that? And I'm thinking, I've been dealing with heroin junkies and crackheads all day long. These gambling addicts are going to be simple. Come to find out, it's just as bad as everything else. It's just as harmful. And they go through just the same pain that we do. The experiences are a little different, but everything's the same, man.
I literally just got done a GA meeting before we hopped on here. I do them on Zoom because I live in the middle of nowhere, so like there's no GA where I live, and there's a ton of Zoom meetings all over the world for GA. And I go Saturday and Sunday, and I found a meeting based out of Las Vegas. Because I figured if anyone can quit gambling, it's people in Las Vegas.
People in Vegas, yeah. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Yeah. And we get into a lot with, like, kind of speaking to what you were talking about earlier, my story is I started smoking crack when I was 16 years old. I fell in with the wrong people. And all the people that my parents told me not to hang out with, and I had no idea what I was doing. But I was sent to treatment.
Well, wait, let's backtrack a little bit, Keith. Okay. So we got off on tangents, which is fine with me.
Yeah.
Let's get back. Okay, so you grew up in Mississippi. You're the first person I've had on the show out of 200 guests from Mississippi, so congrats on that.
Woo. I love Mississippi.
And did you have any brothers or sisters growing up?
Yep, I have a younger brother who is now he is 6'7" and 280 pounds, and I'm 5'9" and about 190. So
you have a big little brother.
Yes.
That's all.
And he is actually we did Beyond Scared Straight on accident because I scared the crap out of him in high school, and he went totally the other way. He's a minister. He's involved he's the CEO of a nonprofit that helps inner city youth. So he's never had any issues with drugs or alcohol.
We have a lot in common then, because my little brother is bigger than I am, taller and everything. And, I scared him straight too. I had alcohol poisoning when I was 16. And my dad, when he went to the hospital to see me that night, he brought my brother with him. And my brother didn't start drinking as early as I did, because I had my first drink at 11. By the time I was 12, I was drinking alcoholically.
Yeah.
And when I say alcoholically, I don't mean I was drinking every night, but I was drinking to numb, whether I was being bullied that day or, dealing with grief. I had a friend who was hit by a car and passed away suddenly. So I was dealing with a lot when I was 12. And whenever I was having a bad day, I knew I could sneak a bottle from my parents' basement out to my room and do a couple of swigs, or get a bottle of Gatorade and mix some vodka and Gatorade and, watch TV in my room and kind of numb. And by the time I was 13, I started smoking weed and I started smoking cigarettes. Did you discover alcohol first?
No, see, that's the funny part. That's where I was going to go with this. I started smoking crack I started smoking weed when I was 12, and that was my magic moment. I guess most of us addicts have that aha moment when everything's right in the world, when we do the first whatever it is we do.
Yep.
I started smoking weed when I was 12, and I had that moment. I was like, this substance is going to be in my life the rest of my life.
I have arrived.
Yeah. So I continued to do that. And when I got to high school, I ran into the kids that were doing that. And one night they asked me if I wanted to try something else. I was like, sure, let's do it. Turned out it was crack cocaine. So my parents put me they signed me into a treatment center. I was underage at the time. I was 16. They signed me into a treatment center, and in Memphis at that time, there was one NA meeting, and it was once a week. So it wasn't enough. And the treatment center was faith-based. So they changed the wording of the 12 steps a little bit, but they used the 12 steps. But it was all about Alcoholics Anonymous. So I was in AA for 3 years before I ever got drunk.
Okay. And so you started smoking crack at 16. How long did that go before your parents, found that out?
Oh, like a year. I didn't have very good luck. I'd spent a whole bunch of money, and I wound up. The guys that I were with were like, "Don't go to this place without us." They were older and a little more experienced. And one night I was like, "I'm going to get my own. I'm not sharing with anybody else now." I wound up getting carjacked, and this guy cut my throat and took off with my car. I jumped out while it was moving. So I had to go call the police.
Let's not run through that. So you're 17 when that happens,
mm-hmm.
and you had your license by then, and you were driving by yourself.
Yeah.
And what happened exactly? You got stopped at a red light or something, or?
No. I let this guy. I didn't know exactly where to go or how to get in touch with the drug dealer. This was before cell phones. We had pagers and payphones. So I didn't know exactly how to get in touch with the drug dealer. So I let this guy get in my car. He was like, "I'll take you to where we can get you some." And he took me down this road, and I knew it then that I was probably that I was making a mistake, but I wanted some dope so bad. So we went down this little dark road, and he whips out a knife and puts it to my throat and was like, "Take the radio out of the car." And I can't take the radio out because I installed it myself. It was an aftermarket stereo, and it would take tools to take it out. And I was like, I can't do that. I can't do that. And it got rough, and he was like, "Drive." And he was trying to get the keys. And so I wound up, he pulled the knife along my throat, and I opened the door and jumped out and let the car run. And he jumped around and got in the driver's seat and took off. So I had to walk back to the nearest gas station and call the police, and then call my parents and explain to them what I was doing in that neighborhood with my throat cut. I mean, it wasn't deep. It wasn't like it was anything life-threatening. It was enough to draw blood and enough to scare me, but not enough to scare me straight. But the thing was, I was on probation at that time. I'd gotten arrested with a bong in my car. So the next day, my mom
can't do that anymore.
So the next day, my mom picks me up from school and was like, "We're going to see your probation officer. He wants a drug test." I'm like, No. I'm going to fail. I've been smoking weed. She's like, "Yeah, he wants to see if there's something else you've been doing." So I failed the drug test for cocaine. And he said somehow or another he could tell that it wasn't powdered cocaine, it was crack cocaine, and that they need to get me in treatment ASAP.
So yeah, had you even done cocaine, or did you skipped right to crack?
No, I skipped right to crack.
That's quite the jump from smoking weed, because weed is the downer and crack is the upper. Now, were you smoking more weed to level yourself out?
Well, at first we started doing primos. We'd break the crack up and put it onto the blunts, and that was it's a totally different experience than smoking crack straight. But I knew I loved it so much, and then they were like, "We're going to do this straight. And so that's what I did. And when that, I only thought I had arrived when I was smoking weed. I was like, this is it right here. It's always, the addict's always looking for more, the next great experience.
No, yeah,
And that was,
yeah. I completely I drank hard for 11 years, and by the time I was 22, alcohol stopped working. I knew I liked weed, but that wasn't enough for me. And when I was introduced to Percocets, it was October of 2008, and it was recently 16 years ago. Last week was 16 years that I discovered opiates, and I thought I had arrived with alcohol, but I really arrived, and I knew that I was addicted right off the bat. About a month into my addiction, I was snorting oxycodone 30 milligrams, and the one day I was hanging out with my buddy. He was a pothead, and I think he still is. And he got his wisdom teeth taken out, and I had just snorted 330 milligrams, so I was on 90 milligrams worth of oxy. And we're sitting in his room watching a concert because he had like a surround sound, so we watched concerts on DVD. And he started passing out on a 5 milligram Percocet, and I'm wide awake and I'm good to go. You know what I mean? Like, I'm high as hell, and he passed out, and I was like, damn, I am on a lot more than he is, and he's falling asleep. I might have a problem with these. And instead of being like, I need help, I figured this is something I need to continue doing because I love the effect it produced. And I barely drank after that because I was so high that I didn't care about drinking. I would drink a beer here and there, get like a tall boy and drink like a natty light tall boy or something like that. You know what I mean? But like, I didn't care about the drink once I found the drug. So you went into rehab when you were 17 for the first time,
mm-hmm.
and you stayed clean for about 3 years.
Well, yeah, I did. I did. Well, I don't know if it was all, but no, but I didn't. It wasn't 3 years because I got ready. When you get done to this treatment center, you get to the very end. They give you what's called a 5th phase vacation. You spend a week at home. It's kind of a practice run. This is your life free. And I screwed that up big time. They were like, the only place you can go is to church and spend time with your family. So I went to church, and all my friends, we all went to church together. I was like, put me a sack in my mailbox. So they put me a bag of weed in the mailbox, and I got it. And I was smoking it that night. And my dad comes upstairs and smells the weed, and he reports me to the treatment center, and I go back in, and I'm starting all the way back over. So I leave walking out of there, and I'm walking back in, and all the guys that I've been working with are like, we never thought he'd be back like this. So it took me 18 months to get through a 9-month treatment center.
And did you finish high school? Because that's a lot to go through when you're in high school, is the crack and the weed.
I did actually. My one thing that I've always been good in school, and so when I went to the treatment center, I got pulled out my senior year of high school, and went to the treatment center. So they put us in this homeschool, and I graduated from a school in Tennessee called Collierville High School, which is another suburb of Memphis. But the thing is, when I went in there, I was in treatment, and they knew the people that were in treatment that were in there. They'd make fun of us and all that stuff. We weren't allowed to talk to anybody that wasn't a teacher or wasn't in treatment with us. So this whole school, about 5% of the people there are in treatment too. And the kids that they're not in treatment know which ones we are, the program kids, and they'll call the treatment center and tell on us and all that stuff. And the thing was, I was in AP classes when I left, and this other school didn't have none of those classes. So I had to take 9th grade classes. So I'm a senior, going to turn 18, getting ready to graduate, and I'm taking classes with 9th graders who are making fun of me because I'm in treatment. So, but I did get to finish, and I graduated from Collierville High School. So,
and college wasn't on your mind?
No, not then. I wasn't done. I wasn't done. I played Mr. Compliant, and I did want to help people. That's what I want to do. I wound up working there. It was the first treatment center I ever worked at. And I did want to help people up. I'm a helper by nature. But I wasn't done. I hadn't fully accepted step one. I mean, I quoted it, and I said everything I needed to say, and I cried when I needed to cry, but I knew I wasn't done. I still thought I was in control. I could still do what I want to do. I just got to do things a little bit different.
Yeah.
So,
How old were you when you started drinking then? 21 or 20?
so I was 21. I started, the thing was I was enjoying my life, yada, 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 working at the treatment center, going to meetings. And I was like, I'm not like all these other alcoholics in here. I quit smoking crack cocaine. My problems ain't like their problems. So my 21st birthday, I bought a 2 12-packs of beer. Got so drunk I missed my birthday party. So that was my first real experience with alcohol. So that should already tell me that I'm an alcoholic. But it didn't. But yeah, so that was started my drinking. 17 DUIs later, I believe I qualified for Alcoholics Anonymous.
17.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the record for the show.
It's not a record I'm proud of.
I had a guy on when he was got pulled over a DUI. When the cop asked for the registration, he opened a glove box and a bunch of empty airplane bottles fell out of the glove box and onto his floor of his car. And the cop pulled him out right away and gave him a DUI. How old were you when you got your first DUI?
21.
Oh, so it didn't take you long.
Long at all.
Were you going to the bars or just drinking alone?
I pretty much started drinking alone. I was with my girlfriend at the time had graduated treatment with me or right behind me. We were treatment romance, and I would go and drink. I would go get whatever vodka that I liked and go to the house and drink it. But then once I started drinking and unleashed it unleashed the whole beast. So I started smoking crack again immediately. So I would go get drunk and then drive around and go meet my crack dealers. So that's what led. I actually got 2 DUIs in 24-hour period.
Were you living alone?
No, I was living with the girl that I was with from treatment. She hadn't relapsed at the time, but she was like, well, I guess I'm just stuck with you. But it didn't last long. When I started smoking crack again, I sold everything in the house that wasn't nailed down, and she kicked me out. And I think I moved in with my grandparents at that point because my mom and dad weren't having it either. We just paid for all this treatment, and now you're back doing the same old thing again.
How'd you get 2 DUIs in a day?
I squandered my way out of jail on the first one and went and picked up my car, got me a bottle, and got drunk on my way back to the house and got pulled over again.
So, did you have any consequences to losing did you lose your license at all? Did you have to go to jail for them?
I did. I've been to prison in 3 states, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Alabama. I'm a habitual offender in 2 of those states. And it's mostly due to DUIs. I've got a couple of cocaine charges, but most of it's due to DUIs. They start racking up when you get 3 or 4. They start becoming felonies, and then they stop giving you breaks and hard time. So, from the age of 20 till about 35, I spent more time either in jail or in treatment centers than I did in what we consider the free world. I was locked up more than I was free. Every time I'd get free, I'd just run like hell until something stopped me.
Yeah. That's the insanity of addiction, man. Just going back and forth between rehab and jail and not really planting your feet anywhere, or you know what I mean? Like that seems. How old are you now?
I'll be 44 actually in 16 days.
Okay, so by the time this comes out, you're 44, and that's wow. That's 9 years of at least some abstinence. Then, so when you're 35, do you get out of jail and you decide you're going to change your life?
No, what happened was
good stories always start with what had happened was.
It's always the best. So I was living with my grandpa. He was old. He was on his last leg, not in good health. And he was just allowing me to. He was trying to keep me alive, basically, because I was drinking a half gallon of vodka a day and doing whatever the heck else I could do. And so I'd met this young lady and started shooting up heroin. I overdosed. What happened was my neighbor was over there. We went and got some heroin, and I overdosed in the back porch. And he cracked 2 of my ribs trying to bring me back to life. And then he wound up waking my sick grandfather up at 2:00 in the morning to call the ambulance. So I came back from that. I lost my job due to that. And I was like, I got to do something different. So treatment was off the table. Paying for any treatment was off the table for anybody in my family. I'd been through so many and burned so many bridges. They were just like, we're not putting out any more for you. It's going to be on you this time. So I found this free place down a little further in Mississippi. It was a faith-based place, which I was fine with. I was raised in church. And that's a big part of my recovery, but I keep it separate from the rooms. So it was like, you got to get on the wait list because it's a free treatment center. So this is August. I didn't get in until November. So I'm drinking. I didn't use any more heroin or any more hard drugs from that day forward. But I was still drinking a half gallon a day. So I drank a half gallon on the way down there. It's a 45-minute ride. And I got me a half gallon that morning and drank it all the way down there. I drank it on the way down there. And this was not a medical facility. So I detoxed from the alcohol cold turkey, and they're puking my guts up, hallucinating, DTs, everything. And I kind of, they kept trying to take me to the hospital, and I refused to go. I was like, I'm either going to die or I'm going to survive this, and I'm going to be sober. And then that's kind of how my real recovery journey started.
Yeah, alcohol it's crazy. Benzos and alcohol are the two things that are, benzos are easily prescribed to you. You just need, there's no real proof of, needing benzos. There's no test they can do on the brain to prove that you need benzos. Anyone can lie and say something in order to manipulate and get benzos. I'm a product of that. I lied to get more. And alcohol is everywhere. It's in the ads that you see on TV. It's, on ads when you're scrolling through Facebook. It's all over the place. And it makes it seem so attractive. And they're the two things that you can literally die from by stopping on the dime and deciding you're going to be like, I'm going to change my life. I'm done drinking. If you're not under medical supervision, there's a chance that you can die from that. And, you were taking a big chance at 35, being like, no, I'm just going to deal with, because like I did it with Percocets and Oxy that like when I got the rehab, they offered me Suboxone, and I said, no, I need this to hurt in order for me not to come back again. Like, I don't want to be comfortable. And same with quitting benzos. I could have went into a treatment and a detox to make sure I was okay, but I wanted it to not be okay, so I wouldn't want to go back again. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like you're punishing yourself so that you don't fall into old habits again.
I'm with you 100%. I mean, I just, I'm not involved in anybody else's recovery. Their choices are their choices, but I believed I needed to go through that, whether they call it self-punishment or whatever. But I was like, this is something I've got to go through. I'm either, my thinking was God's going to either bring me through this or he's going to call me home, but one way or the other, this is going to be it. This is what I've got to do. And I still drank and used. I mean, I've had a couple of slips after that. I had one long stint after that. That was crazy. Even worse. It always gets worse. And then the next story's hella worse.
Right. What's the next story?
Well, there's always a young lady involved. So here's where I'm at. I actually started, because I've worked at so many treatment centers. When I was 6 months in, this is supposed to be a year-long program. It was 6 months in. The guy that was running the place, the second in command, the program coordinator, left to go. He got called to go preach somewhere else. And so the board of directors met with me and interviewed me and made me the program coordinator while I was still in treatment. So I'm running the place while I'm in there, which was, I mean, it was a good thing because I knew I was capable of that, and it was pushing me to be be a better man. It was pushing me to strive for not just settling for half-assed recovery. Then they were like, the director's like, hey, you need to go to school, yada yada yada. So I started going to school full time at 2 schools. I'm going to 2 schools full time. I'm working on a master's graduate certificate in drug and alcohol addiction counseling. I'm starting basic college stuff at a junior college because I've never been to college before. So I'm doing both schools full time, and also the church that we were involved with kind of assigned me a position of recovery pastor there. So I'm doing all this stuff. Got a full life of recovery. Recovery is my identity. And the pastor asked me one night, hey, we got this young lady that she's trying to get off Suboxone. She's medically prescribed it. She's not abusing it or anything, but she's tried several times to get off of it. And the taper, she always winds up ramping back up. She just wants some help, some support and encouragement, yada, yada, yada. And I'm like, this is a bad idea. I knew it was a bad idea to start with. But I was like, we'll do it. I'll do it via text message. I didn't even know who this person was at this point. So we were texting back and forth. I was kind of holding her accountable and checking in with her and all this kind of good stuff. And at one point I felt like she was lying to me. And I was like, look, we got to figure this out. I can't tell what's honest and what's not. We need to sit down and talk. So we met at this little restaurant and had dinner, and 6 months later we're engaged. That's my story. And then 2 weeks before the wedding, we had some things went sideways again. This is a pattern apparently for me. But I just inherited $80,000 from that grandfather that passed away, and the family gave it to me because they thought I was doing so well, and I was doing well at that time. I'd been sober for 3.5 years. I'm working toward a life. But the heartbreak, and I had been so involved with all this recovery stuff that I hadn't been actually taking care of my recovery. It had been probably 3 or 4 months since I talked to my sponsor. I had been going to meetings, taking guys to meetings, but I hadn't been involved in those meetings. I was around recovery, but I wasn't in recovery. So when things went south with the girl, I went back to the bottle, back to the dope, and at this point I was shooting up. So I just inherited $80,000, and I went through it in 4 months. I would go across town. I would go to one side of Memphis and buy my cocaine dealer out. I was buying powder cocaine at this point, and go across the other side of Memphis and buy my heroin dealer out. I figured out if you mix a little pack of cocaine in with your shot of heroin, it keeps you from overdosing. It also stands a really good chance of killing you. But I wasn't thinking about that at that point. So that's how I blew through $80,000. And then I was at this hotel at the end of my run with some people I should have been there with. And I shot up, and I could tell every time that I shot up when I was going to overdose, I could tell I was going to overdose. I got that feeling. You get the whole, I could explain it, but I don't want to go into that much detail. But I knew when I was going to overdose. And I told the people I was with, hey, look, I'm finna overdose. Y'all get ready. Well, they didn't get ready. And I came to, and all these people were standing around, and they were discussing what to do with my body. One idea was put it in a suitcase and haul him downstairs because they weren't going to get caught with a dead body. Needless to say, I woke up and was like, y'all don't have to do anything. I'm okay. Let's get some more dope. But that right there was my wake up call, and I haven't used heroin since that day.
Yeah, you were basically
2018.
What do you remember the day?
Let me see here. It was in December. Actually, it was in December 2018.
Okay. And so you're still, and opiates are, they're not going to kill you to stop, but it's going to make you damn uncomfortable. That's for sure.
Well, I did my own detox. I had this girl. I lost my house because I spent all the money that I was supposed to be paying for the house on drugs, and I had this girl that really was one of the. She loved me, and she was doing the best she could to keep me alive. So I spent 10 days in my heroin withdrawals injecting cocaine and drinking vodka like water. So I didn't kind of feel much of the withdrawals. I was sick, and I would shoot some cocaine up and feel better, and drink like a fish to come down off the coke. It was craziness, man, craziness.
Yeah, that's a lot. That's and I can see how you went through that. And I'm glad that you're still opiate free, because nowadays, with the fentanyl running rampant,
People killing
is fentanyl down in Memphis yet?
Oh yeah, I've been to 3 funerals this year.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, it's killing people.
Is xylazine down there yet?
Yep, we have Trank.
I'm from South Jersey, right outside of Philly.
Mm-hmm.
Now I live in the middle of nowhere in Pennsylvania, where I met my wife and settled down. But I'm sure you've heard of Kensington, Philadelphia.
Mm-hmm.
And that place hasn't had real heroin in like 6-7 years.
Yeah.
And Trank has been, I think Trank started around Philly and then moved its way west, and over the last 6 years. And I've had people on the show from Kensington, and they've told me that the withdrawals from xylazine are so bad that even if you shoot up fentanyl, you're still sick.
Wow.
Like,
yeah, I don't even. I haven't. I'm glad I'm out of the lifestyle, and I don't even want to. That's part of the reason. I mean, it's not. It is part of the reason that I stay sober. That stuff scares me, man.
Yeah,
I love my life too much.
Yep, that's why I didn't relapse with opiates, because I haven't bought street drugs in over 6 years. It'll be 7 years in April that I bought street drugs off the street, and I don't know what would be in those pills now if I was to buy pills again. They're making knockoff pills that are have fentanyl in them, and it's killing people left and right because they think they're just doing a 30 milligram oxy, when really it's fentanyl inside of there, and that can literally kill you if they don't know how to mix it right when they're making the pressed pills. Yeah. And or it's mixing in with people that are smoking off the foil, freebasing, or if they're injecting it, because I've heard a lot of people who injected pills. And obviously the heroin injections, you could die on one shot. I had a friend relapse and died on his relapse. And because you do as much as you used to do, except for now it's fentanyl mixed with the heroin, and that's literally killing people left and right all over the world. I think it's leading cause between 18 and 45. Overdosing is the leading cause of death.
It is. And I have a friend that I was just recently, a couple months ago, I helped. I was helping her get into sober living, and I was like, "You need to tell me, what you've done. We gotta let them know, so we gotta see what medical needs we're gonna have." And she was like, "Keith, I swear, I'm doing cocaine and kratom, And I'm like, "Okay, well you're good. It's gonna suck, but you're gonna be all right." Well, she got there and failed the drug test for fentanyl, because if they're putting it was getting mixed in with her cocaine. She had no idea. That's how people die.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, I've heard of a lot of cocaine being mixed with fentanyl to, keep people sick and keep them wanting to come back for more coke, because the cocaine is more of a mental than a physical, trying to get off that. And I'm sure with the crack that it's way more mental than physical. But mixed with fentanyl, you're dealing with both the physical and the mental. And people aren't even realizing that, it's, you don't really go through you do go through a mental withdrawal with opiates, because you miss them. You miss the feeling to produce it. But you're not seeing shit. You're not hallucinating. You're not seeing shadow people. And did you ever get into meth too?
I did it a few times. It just never did it for me. It I don't know, for some reason. I mean, it was there, and like I said, if it was around, I would do it. But it never held the attraction for me that heroin or crack or cocaine did. Those were my two biggest ones.
And you had said you were engaged at the beginning of this year before you got clean again.
Mm-hmm.
And that ended because of the drug use.
Yeah, that and my dishonesty. We had spent a few months we just moved into a house together, and I was doing everything I could to make her happy, and I stopped making me happy, and I wound up making both of us miserable. And I was being dishonest. I mean, I was being dishonest emotionally. I wasn't lying to her face. I was being dishonest with how I felt and what was going on inside my head. Um, Lies by omission, I guess you could call them. And I knew it, and that stuff ate at me and ate at me and ate at me until I got in the pain big enough where I thought there was only one solution. And come to find out, that solution didn't work. So then I got back to the real solution and got my ass on fire and dove back into the program. Like, this is the thing. When I did it this time, everything that I had learned over the years or picked up on started making sense, and it all clicked, and it happened. I wouldn't show. I found the sufficient substitute now, and that's something I don't think I could have said before.
I was just going to ask you what's different about this recovery as opposed to your recovery.
This is the most amazing experience I've ever had in my entire life. And I've had a lot of good ones. There ain't no high that beats what I've got now. I mean, I'm not high. I'm not living in euphoria, living in Candyland. I live in reality. My feet are on the ground, but my life is so much better, man. I don't have any. I mean, it made everything click. I was like, let's do these damn things, and I did the steps. I put aside everything I knew, and I did what my sponsor suggested. And I dove in, and I got the work done. And I still do the work daily. But this is it's been amazing. I had a couple of guys I was working with that I fired when I relapsed. I was like, look, well, I'll help you find some new guys, some new people to work with. And a month later, they called me back and were like, hey, we're not connected with these people. Will you please still sponsor us again? And I was like, I talked to my sponsor about it. He was like, you damn well better say yes. You know the stuff inside and out. You need to get your ass to work and get out of your head. So I did, and that's what I've been doing. I threw myself back into the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. It's my fellowship. Everybody's got their own. The groups around here are pretty lenient. They allow us to talk about whatever our issues are. There's some groups that are sticklers. There's that everywhere, but we have a couple of groups that are really solid groups that allow us to share whatever issue is. I mean, because the bottom line is, I tell most of my sponsees, you use drugs alcoholically. I mean, we're alcohol. What makes us alcoholic and addicts is not the drugs and alcohol; it's our thinking.
Yeah, I use this. I'm a big proponent of the first step, and admitting you're an addict or an alcoholic is pretty self-evident. But the most important part to me in the first step is it makes your life unmanageable.
Yep.
And, whatever you're doing to fill that void, like for me, when I quit the benzos and the weed, I stumbled into the gambling daily, and it made my life unmanageable. And that's how it became a problem is, it was running my life. The robbing Peter to pay Paul, to borrowing money that my wife didn't know I was borrowing, to scheming online to get money, whatever way I was going to find money to bet that day. And it made my life completely unmanageable to the point where I was like, okay, I need to do something about this. And I know what will work. And it's Gamblers Anonymous because, AA and NA has been so good to me. Why not try GA too? And it was the best decision that I've made because I hear people like myself sharing, whether it's scratch offs, whether it's sports betting, whether it's horses, whether it's the casinos, and I'm hearing all these different ways to recover. And, somebody in my meeting on Saturdays ends her share by saying, have a great day on purpose. And that shit sticks with me every single day because I didn't know until 6 years ago in rehab, a friend of mine, we're still friends to this day, he's from Oregon. And he always says happiness is a choice that you make in the morning when you wake up. You're in control of whether you're going to have a good day or a bad day, depending on your mindset that morning. And I thought happiness was a feeling that you get, and I didn't know that I had the power of choice to be happy that day. And when she says, have a great day on purpose, I know exactly what she means. You know what I mean? And it sticks with me. And I carry that with me throughout my day is, you can reset and I tell my kid this all the time. He's 10. If you had a bad day at school, you can reset your day at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and have a good rest of your day and end the day on a good note. You know what I mean? You can flip that switch and be like, okay, I'm home now. I got my video games. I got my YouTube time. I'm going to have a good rest of my day, and I'm going to laugh and have fun, play a board game maybe, and do things to keep him, with it. He does therapy too. My wife does therapy. I do therapy. My wife and I have a psychiatrist. We do the damn thing. She does recovery dharma, which is like a Buddhist approach to recovery. And
I've heard of that.
Right now she's in a meeting. She does 3 meetings on Sundays, and my meeting, I do meetings 7 days a week, but I do 1 a day. But this is a meeting for me. You and I talking, a meeting is 2 alcoholics having a conversation. That's a meeting.
That's recovery. Yeah.
And, I'm going to do 7 of these today. You're number 2. And that's like hitting 7 meetings in one day,
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And I close out, and I guess I should think about reframing how I say it. But when I go to meetings and sometimes I'll close out with, if you have a bad day, it's nobody's fault but your own. And you're just saying the positive aspect of that, but yeah, reset your day, man. I mean, I don't have bad days anymore. That's the thing. I have bad moments, but I don't have bad days. I'm not going to sit in it and be miserable. I just choose not to.
When I was in LA, I used to go to a meeting every night called Late Night. And it was every day, 7 days a week at 11 p.m. And my sober living gave me permission to break curfew every night to go to that meeting. So my sponsor would pick me up and drop me off, and we go to that meeting. And if I had a bad day, walking out of a meeting, as you know, you can completely reset your day. And I would go to bed with a smile on my face, because late night meetings, it's not a lot of, if you go to a 7 o'clock meeting in Los Angeles, it's filled with the rehab people, and you're filled around people who just have under 30 days, and no one really has that recovery yet, besides maybe the speaker that's speaking that night.
Yeah.
But you go to 11 o'clock meeting where there's, nobody's really speaking. There's a little bit of crosstalk, a lot of laughs. I forgot how to laugh. I forgot that shit. And I was doing stand-up comedy in addiction, and I forgot how to laugh. I knew when to laugh. I knew when something was funny and I should laugh, but I forgot how to genuinely laugh and hurt your stomach laughter. And, that shit sticks with me six years later to this day is, if I'm laughing at something, it's not because I'm not laughing on purpose. I'm laughing because I'm genuinely in a good mood and it's making me happy.
Yep. I love it. That I absolutely, the book says we absolutely insist on enjoying life. And I do that every minute of every day. The gratitude goes with me. As long as I'm grateful, I can't be hateful. You can't be hateful and grateful at the same time. So as long as I'm grateful, everything's a good day. Everything's a good day. I have Cadillac problems today. I don't, it's minor inconveniences. And if it is something big, it's not, I'm still alive. I'm still here. I got things to do. The life is so amazing, man. It just is. I wouldn't trade what I have now for anything. My past adds up, and I relapsed. I did. But the sobriety I have now is of a quality I never could have imagined. And the life I have now is a quality I never could have imagined. I'm actually starting my master's in social work. I finished college. I got a bachelor's in addiction psychology. I'm starting a master's in social work in January. So from a 3-time habitual offender, convict, crackhead, to doing something, I get to help people in addiction. It's just an amazing, amazing experience, man.
Yeah, I just applied for student loans to go back to school to be a therapist.
Yeah.
And, I have a therapist, like I said, and she encouraged me to start this show back up again over the summer, because I wanted to wait at least 3 months into my new recovery before I started my show back up. I've started the show in 2021, and I have over 200 episodes out. And she was like, I think you should get back into doing that for your own mental health. And she was right. And then about 2 months ago, when her and I talked about me going back to school, and she was like, maybe start a podcast around therapy. So I have another podcast that I'm still, in its infancy, where I interview people about trauma. In this show we touch on trauma but focus on addiction. And now I have, the unlicensed therapist is my other show. And I love that name. I came up with it.
I love it.
Perfect.
It's awesome.
And I interview people about deep dive into trauma, and we touch on addiction, but we focus on trauma. So I've had a lot of guests on my show that have been on this podcast where we have touched on trauma and focused on addiction. We kind of flip-flop it now. And, I've heard some unbelievable things and redemption stories and people getting back on their feet after, a lot of them sexual assault at a young age, men and women. My first episode is this guy, Foster, who was on my show 3 years ago. He's been on like 3 times. And he was sexually abused by 2 different stepfathers between 5 and 9.
Wow.
And, he was like, I felt like I had a sign on my head, because of how often it would happen to him. And, that really set the tone for my show of like, okay, he was on early on into my show, and like, this is the kind of show and the kind of things I'm going to hear. I need to mentally be ready to hear some, really unsettling things. And it's been amazing for my recovery, doing these. So I appreciate you coming on and telling your story. Do you have your license back?
I do. Actually, it's a dadgum miracle. I fought. I went through drug court. I know you guys have recovery courts or drug courts up there, but I went through drug court, and they were no help at all. And so I started making some steps on my own, and I wound up in the driver's license place one day, and they were like, I had papers signed by a judge that I went and talked to. Me and my lawyer and I went and talked to, and it expunged a DUI 4th, which is a bit serious offense in Mississippi. They stop counting after 4. It's just 4th or after, and it's 10 years mandatory that you get time. And I have 3 of those on my record, but I never did a day of prison for any of them. But I got one of them expunged, and I took the paperwork to the driver's license place, and they're like, they called down to Jackson, Mississippi, which is where the DMH headquarters are. And they're like, you can't get a DUI 4th expunged. And I'm like, well, here's the paperwork signed by the judge. So he was like, you go sit down, we'll call you back. And 15, 20 minutes later, they called me back up there and said, hey, you want to pay your reinstatement fees? And so I 17 DUIs later, I have a valid driver's license and insurance, only by the miracles of this program, man. That's the only way possible, because it didn't have nothing to do with me. I got a charge expunged that the state says is not expungible.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Yep. Have a great day, Keith.
Yep, you too, brother.